The street pauses.
For a moment, the street seems to pause for a camera. People turn toward the lens, some from the doorway, some from the window, some from the crowd itself. Whatever was happening a minute earlier, it has been interrupted, just long enough to be photographed. And then you notice what many of them are holding: pots, pails, jugs, not parcels, containers meant to be filled.
What we see first.
We are on a city street in front of a brick corner building with tall windows and large ground floor openings. The ground is pale and uneven, possibly snow, possibly light gravel or dust. The scan doesn't allow certainty. The clothing suggests it is not hot. Shawls, headscarves, caps, coats, layered, but not the heaviest winter gear. A crowd gathers at the entrance. At the far edge of the frame, a few uniformed men stand slightly apart, visible but not part of the crowd's center.
What the postcard tells us.
Before we interpret faces or gestures, the photograph speaks in printed German. Across the top it reads, "From occupied Lida, in front of a Jewish public kitchen." That first word, occupied, is not neutral. It places the viewer inside the occupier's map, looking at a town defined by control. And then it names the institution, a Jewish public kitchen. So the card does not merely show a street scene, it instructs us how to read it.
The doorway in 3 scripts.
Now we step down from the postcard's voice to the building's own language. Above the entrance, the institution is announced in 3 registers: German, Volksküche, Polish, Kuchnia, and a line in Hebrew script, likely Yiddish, visible but not readable letter by letter in this scan. This matters because it anchors the kitchen locally. The caption at the top is German, aimed outward at German readers, but the doorway speaks inward, to people in the street, across Polish and Jewish vernacular alongside German. Signs are not a census. They do not prove exactly who lived here, but they do show who needed to be reached and in what languages public life operated.
The building's second life.
To the right, another sign reads, Drogerie, a drugstore. That single word changes the feel of the scene. This is not a separate relief compound. It is an ordinary urban building, shop fronts and windows, repurposed by wartime need. A city does not stop functioning when crisis arrives. It adapts its existing spaces, sometimes awkwardly, into new roles.
Containers, not shopping.
Now the objects in people's hands begin to explain the scene. These are not shopping bags. They are vessels, pails, pots, jugs, containers designed to carry something poured or ladled. This is the strongest material proof that the words public kitchen are not decorative. They correspond to practice, food distributed at a doorway, likely in portions, under a timetable. And with these vessels, and with a public kitchen sign above the door, it becomes likely that this crowd was a working cue moments before the camera asked it to turn.
The paused scene. Relief and its performance.
Many faces look directly at the lens. That may suggest the photographer did not steal a moment from a distance. It may be that minutes earlier, the line was moving, people facing the doorway watching the entrance, and then the photographer arrived and the street was asked to pause. A cue becomes a tableau. Some men near the doorway appear better dressed and more composed, positioned almost like representatives. Someone leans from a window, drawn into the event of being photographed. Even the uniformed men remain clearly visible at the edge. If this was staged, the photograph records 2 realities at once: a functioning relief line and the brief performance of that line for an official camera.
Social layers in the crowd.
The foreground reads as need: practical clothing, vessels held low, bodies angled toward the entrance. Behind them, closer to the doorway, a cluster of men appears better dressed, clustered, composed. They may be staff, committee members, local notables, or simply those who stepped forward when the picture was arranged. We can't be sure. What we can see is separation: those who wait and those who stand nearer the threshold. Headscarves and caps dominate the crowd, but this is shared regional wear and does not prove identity by itself. Here, Jewish is stated by the German caption and quietly echoed by the Hebrew script line on the sign, more than it is proven by any single hat.
Authority at the edge.
At the far side of the frame, uniformed men stand apart. From this scan, naming a specific unit would be guesswork, but their placement matters. They are present, visible, and separate from the recipients. If the scene was posed for the camera, their inclusion may have been deliberate, a visual reminder that relief operates under authority and is shown as such.
How this image traveled.
Now we read the corners, because postcards have their own grammar. In the lower left corner, there is a stamp, Zenziert, Paul Hoffman and Company, Berlin, Schöneberg. This is not a private note on a personal print. It signals controlled circulation. The image was approved and distributed within a wartime system. In the lower right corner, there is a photographer credit, Faute Heiche, and a catalog-like number, 1513. The credit is printed, but the card alone doesn't let us identify the person with certainty. The number suggests series production, one image among many, organized for circulation. A censored, captioned postcard like this rarely travels as neutral information. It may document need, but it may also shape a message. What occupation looks like, and what authority wants to be seen doing. And those two functions can overlap.
Place, time, and a responsible bracket.
The caption names the town, Lida, today in Belarus. Before the First World War, this region belonged to the Russian Empire. During World War I, parts of it fell under German occupation. That is why the postcard can call it Occupied Lida. But the frame does not give us a single year with certainty, so we keep a bracket, likely within the World War I occupation period.
Local context kept brief.
In the late imperial period, Lida had a large Jewish population. In such towns, Jewish mutual aid networks and relief institutions could be central, especially during wartime shortages. A kitchen marked in German, Polish, and Hebrew script fits that ecology. A local institution speaking to the street, operating inside an imposed political order.
What we can't know from the frame.
The photograph doesn't show the paperwork behind the ladle. We cannot see who financed the kitchen, who cooked, what rules controlled access, or what negotiations shaped its existence. We also cannot know the postcard's intent with certainty. Sympathy, reassurance, propaganda, these can overlap. But we can still read what is materially present: a caption of occupation, a doorway in 3 scripts, a censorship stamp, a credit and a number, and vessels waiting to be filled.
Close. What this image wanted to mean.
This photograph holds 2 truths at once. One is the lived mechanism, a doorway, a pot, vessels waiting for a portion. The other is the interruption, the moment the street pauses and performs itself for the lens. But there is a third layer, the meaning the postcard tries to carry. Because it is captioned, censored, and distributed, it may not be showing hardship simply to record it. It may be asking its German reader to draw a conclusion. Look how poor it is here. Or, look how organized our rule is. Or both at the same time. And beneath that imposed sentence, Occupied Lida, the doorway still speaks in 3 scripts: German, Polish, Hebrew letters. And in people's hands, pails and jugs, the past leaves its most ordinary proof, what had to be carried home.
If this small fragment of the past spoke to you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.